Now we're going to start building the foundation. And we'll start with the foundation base, which is a 9 5/8 inch square. And we're going to cut an octagon with 4-inch sides. Now we've cut a lot of octagons, so I'm not going to do this with you, but just make sure that when you're marking your sides that you get your centering ruler centered. When we have these eighths, there's a little 16th on each side. And then you'll cut the foundation lid. It comes from a 10 7/8 inch square, and these sides are 4.5 inches. So now let's talk about the foundation top. We start out with a piece that is 10 7/8 inch square, and we mark for our 4.5 inch sides, just like we did for the lid. So I've got 4.5 inch sides here marked all around. And now what I want to do is inset the size of the base. And since this is a 10 7/8 inch square and our base is 9 5/8, I'm going to draw a line on each side that is 5/8 in from the outside. So now I have a 9 5/8 inch square centered on this piece, and I'm going to mark an octagon on that 9 5/8 inch square with 4-inch sides. So I'm just going to kind of ignore this outside 5/8 all around and mark for an octagon on the 9 5/8. So we already have some of the sides here. We just basically will need to make our diagonals. So just measure in for your 4-inch by putting your centering ruler like we've done, and get your 4-inch sides and create that octagon. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. And now that I have those lines drawn, I'm going to erase some of these external lines so that I just end up with the shape of the 2 octagons. That way I won't get confused about what's going on. So just kind of come in here and erase your lines so that you end up with one large octagon on the outside and one smaller octagon 5/8 of an inch in on all sides from the large one. And now we want to draw one more octagon, and this one will be 1/8 of an inch bigger all around than the smaller octagon that we have. So I'm just going to take my ruler and line up 1/8 of an inch with my ruler and draw a line and connect them all the way around. So what these lines have allowed us to create is a central octagon that is the same size as our foundation base, which will now be our foundation top. And then there's like that 1/8 inch gap that's all the way around. That's not going to be anything. And then we'll have a 1/2 inch wide rim for our lid. So the way I'm going to cut this out is that first I'm going to cut on the octagon that is 1/2 an inch away from the edges. And I think that will be easier. You can hold on to the corners and have something to cut, and cut that octagon out and then cut these corners off. So I'm going to do that. So cutting out that inner line and then cutting off the triangles gives me this lower part of our rim for the lid. And if we take our foundation lid piece, they should be the same on the outside. Now we're left with our central part, the foundation top, that has this 1/8 inch line all around, and that should be equal to our foundation base. If you put this centered in there, what we want to end up is for the top to be the same size as the base. So if you see that you need to make any adjustments, mine looks pretty good here, I think. I'm just going to trim off those edges on the top so that I end up with a top that's the same size as the base. So now we're ready to start assembling our foundation base, and I've got the base octagon here. I've got the 8 sides to the foundation, and if you can't see this, on each one I've got a pencil line there. I've done it in ink, and that just indicates to me, since these are squares, that that's the vertical direction, that's the stiffness direction, so that I keep the project as sturdy as possible. So I've marked that on all of them since they're squares, and I just have a bunch of little cardstock joining strips here. So I'm going to do 2 things to start with, and one is to prep the base by putting joining strips along the edge with the thin part facing out here all around the edge, and then I'm going to put the walls together in sets of 2 to begin with. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. So I'm back. You can see I've got things prepped, and I forgot to say I would also add another joining strip on one end of each one of these units so that we're ready to join them together. And the reason we put them together in sets of 2 to begin with was in case they are a little too short to go around. We can make that adjustment when we connect the joining strips. So I'm just going to lay mine around my base and kind of match up my edges and see if that's going to be an issue or not. And then if it is, and it shouldn't be much if it is at all, and don't worry if the base is smaller, that's not a concern. I'm just kind of holding it up here and seeing, do my edges meet? And everything looks like there's no gaps here. I can feel around, and so I think I can go ahead and assemble all of my walls into one unit, and then go ahead and use the construction strips that are down here in the bottom to join it to the walls. Now the base is inset. It is sitting inside of these walls. The walls are flat against my table surface. So I'll get that put together and then I'll be back. Our next step would be to put in the 2 support walls. I've got support A and support B here, but I'm going to do an optional step, and that is to cover the inside of my box, mostly because I've got this big red writing on here. I could have put it together the other way and then I wouldn't have seen it, but oh well. So I cut a piece that with my octagon shape, just like I have for the base, and I'm just putting it in there temporarily to begin with, because I want to add some score tape underneath where the support walls are going to be. So I'm going to just take a support wall, and the support walls, you want to keep them perpendicular to the sides when they go in, and I'm just using a ruler here to see that I have it straight and parallel with there. For me, when I put these in, I have about an inch and a quarter from the inside of the outside wall to the outside of the inside wall, something like that. And then I'm just going to draw a line so I'll know where to put that. And I'll repeat that on the other side. And then I'll do the same thing for my 2 little short walls down here, which are about a ½ inch away from the outside. So I'll draw those 4 lines, and then I'll put score tape underneath on the top of those lines. And because the piece is symmetrical, I can just put it upside down. And I just want to remember that these are where the long sides are going to go, just so that I remember to put everything in correctly when we go to assemble it. So I'll get this set in, and then we'll be back to put in our support walls. So I have my cardstock liner in the bottom now, and I'm ready to install my support pieces. Now I've prepped the longer ones with joining strips on the sides on one side and on the long edge on the opposite side, and that's just because when I put it in here I don't want to see a joining strip on the bottom. So it doesn't really matter. So I'm just now that I've lined it, I don't want to see anything on the bottom. Now I'm not going to have a bottom strip on the short ones. I don't think it needs it. So to put these in, let's just do a dry fit. And they are a little bit shorter than the sides, 1/16 of an inch, so that our top here can get inset. And I just like to do that dry fit just to remind myself where I'm going. So on these long sides, it is, for me to keep it parallel, I have about an 1.25 inches from the side. So I'll just have my ruler there, and then when I put the side in, that can help me get that aligned. So I've got my ruler on the edge there, and I'm just coming straight down with my side. And once I have it in position, I can secure these strips on the side. Now you want to make sure you're not bowing anything out on these sides. So a good way to keep checking and make sure you don't have anything bowed out is to take your rim in here and make sure that nothing is getting pushed out of the way. So I'll repeat that for my other sides, and then for this long side I can reach in there with my bone folder and make sure I get everything well burnished. So now that we have our support walls in, we want to make a few marks on the top edges of our outside walls. And what we're going to do is lay our ruler along each wall with the edge of the ruler towards the inside of the opening. And we're just going to make a tick mark on the edge of the wall. Hopefully you can see these little marks that I've made right here. And I'm going to do that around all 4 sides. Just keep my ruler on the inside edge of that wall. And once we've finished making all those little tick marks, we can take our foundation top and just inset it. Make sure it gets inset in all of those walls there. And then I just like to take a couple pieces of blue tape so it won't shift around while we do this part. And the other thing that I want to do is mark a dot on one of the sides and then a corresponding dot on the wall. And that just in case our top isn't perfectly symmetrical where our walls are, which I'm sure mine isn't, and we won't have any issues when we go to put the top on. So what we want to do now is find our tick marks, and I'm going to start with one of my longer sides here. And I'm going to look for the tick marks, and I'm going to connect them. Now if it's not perfectly parallel with this side, don't worry about it. That won't be crucial. So just draw that line all the way across. I kind of like to do my 2 long sides first. It doesn't really matter. And then I'll do my 2 short sides. Well, when I marked this dot, I forgot that we would end up with 4 separate sides. So what I really want to do is put a number 1 on that side, and then I'll just label each side. So I'm putting a 2 on this piece and on the side wall, and a 3 and a 4. So now we can remove our foundation top. And we can cut out these 4 sides. And then we'll also want to prep for installation of those sides, and we'll take some of our ledger strips. Now, we don't have to do anything on these interior walls. It's mostly on the long walls and right here, and just on the outside walls here. You don't have to worry about these tiny little pieces. But we'll put a ledger strip on the inside, and we'll keep it a 1/16 of an inch down from the top. And that will give us something to glue our little pieces of the foundation top onto. So I'll get those ledger strips prepped and my pieces cut, and then I'll be back for installation. So because I want to line the interior of my project, before I attach these pieces down, I want to cut some cardstock, in my case, to cover them up. And for these 3 that I've already attached, I've already done that. We're just cutting a piece that can fit on top of here with a little 1/2 inch tab. So I've saved one to do with you. And what I did was I just took a piece of cardstock that was plenty wide here, and I scored a 1/2 inch down on one side, and I'm just kind of folding it up so it's at a right angle. And then just with some temporary adhesive, I'm putting my piece on the top here, and I have it in the orientation that I would be adding my paper, so that I have that paper attached to the top of my piece. And then what I want to do is just cut out along the top and the angle. And then when I get over to this other angle here, I'll just cut this straight down so that I end up with a piece like this. Now I just temporarily attach that. The other thing I want to do is, this is my number 1 piece. I'm just going to write a number 1 on the bottom of that so that I don't get it confused with the other piece in case they're not identical. So I'm just putting those pieces of cardstock aside for now. And now we're ready to install our edge piece. Now, I've got a joining strip here that I have just folded inside out. And what I want to do is, I've cut that to the length here. And I'm just kind of resting this piece up here for now and putting the joining strip on the edge so that I can mark for where I need to trim these corners off. So I'll get those trimmed off. Now, because this piece is cut the way it is, it's a little wobbly here. So the way I'm going to fasten this down is I'm going to put this back in place temporarily. And I'm taking the backing off of the side that is going on the inside, not the side that's going up here. So I'm just bringing it in gently. And then I'm squeezing it on at these corners where there's more support so that it's staying there. And then I'm going to fold that back and take this piece out. And then I can reach in here and burnish with my fingers so that I have a good connection now with that tape. If we were to put it onto the top first and then try to press on here, there's no support behind here, so you wouldn't be successful. So now that we've got that well attached to the front there, so now that we have that well attached to the front of our piece, I'm going to remove the score tape backing and then run a bead of glue along that top edge, and for these big ones, the ledger strips, and this ledger strip that's out on this side here. And then we can put our piece in, fit it in here. And squish this glue together and bring that joining strip on there and just hold that for a few seconds or a minute until that glue has a chance to grip. And then we'll be ready to move on. Now we're ready to cover the sides of our foundation. And I've got my pieces of pattern paper cut here already. You'll need 4 that are 5 by 5 and 4 that are 4 inches wide by 5 inches tall. Now the ones that are 5 by 5 get scored a 1/2 inch in on all 4 edges, and the ones that are 4 by 5 just get scored a 1/2 inch in on the top and the bottom, since the walls are 4 inches tall. Now I think you can see here that I've done some embossing on my paper. Obviously that would be an optional step. I used this is kind of a, I'm not sure if this is still available, it's a Derice folder, and I think it's called Stonework, but there's all sorts of bricks and stone embossing folders out there, and as I said, it was optional. I did get this more enhanced look here by when I opened up the folder, on the side that has the lines, not the side that has the flat stones, I took my ink pad and went over that, and then when I put the paper in, I put it with the side I wanted to see facing that side, so that when I embossed it, I think you can see that the lines in between the stonework are a little bit darker. So that's how I created that effect. I'm not sure who I learned that from on YouTube, but anyway, it's a nice little technique. But again, it's not strictly necessary. So, like I said, I did my scoring here, so I don't really need my scoreboard anymore. And after I did the scoring, I decided which end was up, and I marked that with an arrow here. I think you can see that on the back. Because what I want to do is line this up on my mat and just put my ruler so I'm seeing the top 1 inch here, and just take my bone folder and try to flatten that out a little bit. This is the upper tab and then the part where the lid fits on, and whatever we can do to make that part where the lid fits on a little less bumpy will make our life easier. And then you can also do the same thing for the bottom 1/2 inch on that score, the tab. I don't know if that's strictly necessary. It's not going to show as much, but you could do that as well. Alright, so that's our prep on the paper. And then on the box, oh wait, I'm sorry, I didn't say where I put the score tape. This is the 4 inch wide by 5 inch tall. I have score tape on the 2 tabs and on the 2 edges here. And then on the one that is 5 by 5, I just have it on the 4 tabs. And then on the foundation, On every other panel, I've gone around it with a 1/4 inch score tape. And then you can see the next panel has no score tape on it. So we're going to start by putting all of our 5x5 panels on. And you can see I've already prepped to put one on here. So I'll put the next one on. And when I put one of these panels on, I leave this score tape on to begin with. Wherever the bottom is from my paper I'm putting on, I remove the score tape from there. The score tape backing, I should say. And then keeping these edges so I can see what's going. Oh, sorry. One more little prep step here is to cut just a little slight notch or a slit right now just to release those two corners. And then we can just feel it that it's centered on here and slide it up till that bottom tab engages. And then I would flip this up out of the way and just give that a burnish. So now we have it in place, and the next thing I do is remove the score tape backing from the chipboard. And this can just come nicely up to the top there. You want to burnish around all those edges. Give this some support because some of these sides don't have as much support as others. So, and then up here on the top, we can remove this score tape backing. And again, just make a couple of little slanted cuts into towards the corners there. Then we can put that central piece down. Then remove your tape backing. I shouldn't have put this bottom down flat yet because these tabs I forgot weren't attached yet. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Now remove this score tape backing. From these sides. We'll put down the sides to begin with. And then on the top and the bottom, we'll just cut a corresponding notch on this side so that the paper doesn't overlap and meets a nice miter there so that it's nice and flat on the top and bottom. So there you can see that. And if it's starting to look like it will overhang up here on the top on anything, just give it a little haircut. And I'll check this one too, just right there. Cut that miter. And then I can repeat that here on the bottom. So I would do all four sides, but in the interest of time, as long as I've got these two done, I can show you how to do the middle one. So on the middle one, this is where we use one of our 4-inch pieces, and I have inked the edges, the vertical edges here, and this is just going to fit right inside. You can there'll be a little overlap of the paper down here, or you can give it a little cut to release that. And then up here, well, let's get it attached. And then when we get up here to the top, we need to have a cut so that we can wrap into the inside right there. So I'm going to remove this backing. Then make a cut right on those two corners so that this piece can wrap down inside. And then again here, when these pieces wrap, cut anything back that is going to get close to the edges of our sides here. So I'll just come in here and look at that. And give that a little cut there, and probably, sorry, my scissors are all junky. And just release some of that bulk over there. And the same thing over here, just come in here, figure out where that needs to be. So that's how our walls will get finished. So remember, put all your 5-inch pieces, every other one on first, and then come back and fill in with your 4-inch pieces. Now to finish up our foundation, I have taken my pieces of cardstock that I cut earlier, and I backed them with some score tape, and I'm just installing them. I like to take that edge off first and then just kind of slide it into place, and then burnish the inside edge, and then burnish that top edge. And then to finish off the inside, I've cut about 2.5 strips. I've got kind of a long, I've got them just stuck together with some score tape. This is 3 7/8 inches tall. And what I'm going to do is just fit it inside of here and put one of the corners in a corner, and then crease where the other corners are. Figure out where I need to cut it off, and then I can put score tape on those creases and around both the top and bottom edges and get that installed for a nice finish look. So here I have the foundation all lined.